10 Eyewitness News with Sandra Sully.
4 teenagers dead, 1 still fighting for life. The tragic toll of 1 road smash. Experts and amateurs to search hundreds of square kilometres of Australia for a meteor. And a stunned sporting world mourns Colombian soccer star Andre Escobar. Good evening. A 13-year-old youth is still fighting for life after an horrendous road smash in Victoria that claimed the lives of 4 of his friends. Police say it appears a combination of alcohol, high speed and the driver's inexperience led to the tragedy. The accident happened early today on the Western Highway near Bacchus Marsh, west of Melbourne. Police say 3 girls and 2 youths aged between 13 and 17 left a party at Melton shortly before their car slammed into a concrete pole along the Western Highway just after 3:30 this morning. The 17-year-old driver, Nigel Gregory Smith of Melton South, had taken his father's car without permission and did not have a driver's licence.
It's an absolute tragedy. Again, you've got 4 young people that have lost their lives. They seem to have had a view, at least the driver had, that they're invincible.
Police say the car was travelling at more than 150 kilometres an hour when it ran off the road out of control and smashed into the pole. The impact was so great, the car's engine was thrown 45 metres away.
I think the bottom line is that people, regardless of any age, have got to take responsibility for their own actions. They are fallible, and this type of trauma can happen to anyone.
The 17-year-old driver and the 3 girls were all killed. A 13-year-old youth was airlifted to the Alfred Hospital, where he remains in a critical condition. Police say the accident was caused by a deadly combination of alcohol, speed and inexperience on the part of the driver. They'll also be investigating to see if illicit drugs were taken just before the collision.
It's a tragedy that they've killed themselves. I could see the potential, given this combination, for a far greater tragedy than what occurred.
Jennifer Hansen, 10 News. A massive search across 3 states will begin in earnest this week for a meteor believed to have slammed into Earth around the South Australian-New South Wales border. Thousands of people jammed police and emergency switchboards last night to report a fireball crossing southern Australia.
According to eyewitnesses, it was like a scene out of the movie Meteor. The fireball burnt brightly as it rocketed across the night sky in a northeasterly flight path just after 8:30 last night. It was clearly seen from a number of centres, including Port Lincoln, Dubbo and Broken Hill. Police and emergency services in 3 states recorded numerous sightings of meteorites or space debris flying overhead. This dazzling display of light and sound had its biggest impact here in the mining city of Broken Hill. Hundreds of residents heard the sonic boom or saw the night sky turn into day.
Well, I was sitting in the lounge room of my motel and heard this deafening bang. It was a shocking noise. I grabbed the torch and ran outside. I thought something had landed on the roof of the motel.
According to the owner of the Lodge Motel, the sky lit up.
Actually, some people that was coming to the motel was coming in to Broken Hill from the east, and they were quite a way out, and they said that the whole sky over Broken Hill lit up red.
Also to light up was the switchboard at the Broken Hill police station.
Yes, it certainly livened things up as lively as we've had it for a long while. It tied our lines up for quite a while, and some people may have had some trouble getting through.
An aerial search of the outback region today failed to find any trace of what was almost certainly a meteorite crashing to Earth.
If it was a large man-made object, that's the sort of thing that is tracked, and we would be given advance notice of a decaying orbit.
Police in Broken Hill say they're expecting scientific experts to join locals in their search. Rick Teague, 10 News.
Coalition leader Alexander Downer says he wants federal governments elected for 4-year terms so they can spend more time on policies and less on re-election strategies. The Keating government welcomed the move but is sceptical about the opposition leader's motives.
Historically, the federal opposition has been against extending the current 3-year parliamentary term. But today, leader Alexander Downer backed a 4-year term for the House of Representatives.
You'll only ever get changes made to the Constitution if there is bipartisan support for those changes.
The Labor Party has always supported the longer term, and the last referendum on the issue was defeated in 1988.
So where was Alexander when we needed him 4 or 5 years ago? And it's a little bit hard to treat this seriously now.
The government welcomes the opposition leader's support, but is sceptical about the policy backflip.
Well, I think that he is desperately looking for some element of a reform agenda. So naturally enough, he's picking up on our old ideas.
Despite bipartisan support, there are still problems.
The stumbling block in terms of 4-year terms has traditionally been what do you do with the Senate? Do you give them 8 years or do you give them some different formula?
Longer parliamentary terms are not on the government's agenda, and without support from all parties, including the Democrats, the government says it won't go ahead with a referendum. And on the latest Liberal embarrassment, Alexander Downer defended Bronwyn Bishop today, claiming his shadow health minister has been unfairly picked on.
There's a sort of open season on Bronwyn Bishop at the moment. If another member had been involved in this situation, it wouldn't have been an issue. Because it's Bronwyn Bishop, it became an issue.
Stephanie Kennedy, 10 News.
Mr Downer also dismissed criticism over the appointment of prominent Liberal Marise Payne to the Australian Republican movement. Although the movement is against Liberal Party policy, Mr Downer said everyone was entitled to their personal views.
Marise Payne is the Australian Republican movement's latest secret weapon. Today she was appointed as Vice Chairperson of the committee, a big step considering she's the former president of the Young Liberals and a policy advisor to the New South Wales Premier, John Fay.
He understands that I make this decision as an individual and is fine.
Ms Payne says she hasn't changed camps. She's just entitled to her own opinion, no matter how far this strays from party policy.
Well, I would hope that, that Liberals would respect my individual opinions as I respect all of theirs. I'm sure that it will create some discussion. Whether or not it attracts criticism, we'll have to wait and see.
And it didn't take long. This morning, federal opposition leader Alexander Downer made it more than clear how he felt about it.
I have to say to you, if the Australian Republican movement thinks that getting a staff member of a Liberal politician is a major breakthrough for the Republican movement, it says something about the confidence that they have in their case.
But the Republican movement is now confident this latest edition will encourage more closet supporters to come out in the open.
We want all Australians, regardless of their political affiliation, to feel free to join the Republican movement and to support it.
Lyndall Davies, 10 News.
Embattled businessman John Elliott has again lashed out at his accusers, describing the National Crimes Authority as an insidious organisation. Elliott maintains the legal action against him, involving charges of theft and conspiracy over more than $60 million, is politically motivated.
Facing charges of theft and conspiracy involving $66 million, former Elders IXL boss John Elliott is confident he'll walk from the courts with a clean slate.
I won't be going to jail, Neil. It's just scurrilous nonsense. So I've done nothing wrong.
Speaking on Channel 9, Mr Elliott, for the second time in 3 days, accused the National Crime Authority of conducting a witch hunt against him that he claims is politically motivated.
Well, it all started back at the time of the 1990 election, when Mr Hawke and Keating and the boys in the Labor Party thought they'd gained some political advantage.
Mr Elliott claims the NCA has squandered $20 million of public money on their investigation and that they should be abolished.
It's an insidious organisation that reports to no one, can phone tap, can break into people's homes, can follow you around.
Have they done that to you?
Yes.
Phone tapped?
Yes.
Broken into your house?
Well, my house was broken into and nothing was stolen. I don't know if it was them.
And Mr Elliott doesn't believe it's possible for him to now have a fair trial.
I think it's going to be very difficult.
Jennifer Hansen, 10 News.
Coming up, shock and disbelief around the world after Colombian soccer star Andrés Escobar is murdered. And a random IRA attack hits a disabled wedding in Belfast. There has been shock and outrage around the world following the slaying of Colombian soccer star Andrés Escobar. 2 men were detained shortly after Escobar was gunned down outside a bar in his hometown, just 10 days after he played a role in his country's elimination from the World Cup Series in America.
Andrés Escobar was shot 12 times following an argument with 3 men in the parking lot of this restaurant in Medellin, Colombia, One of the men reportedly shouted, "Thanks for the goal," before the shots rang out. A reference presumably to this accidental goal. Escobar slipped past his own goalie during Colombia's stunning loss to the United States 10 days ago. A loss which eliminated Colombia, one of the favourites from World Cup competition.
People make mistakes on the soccer field, and they do in every sport, and for someone to have to die over it is just ridiculous.
During today's matches, sad recognition of the fallen player, and Irish coach Jack Charlton offered some of the money raised to pay his own fine to Escobar's family.
Who wants to play international football if you're going to get assassinated for doing it? Absolute nonsense.
As news of the assassination spread through Medellin, 3,000 people crowded the streets and blocked traffic in front of the city's morgue. Andrés Escobar played for the local club in Medellin, a city synonymous with cocaine and violence. Police reportedly have 2 suspects in custody. Andrés Escobar is no relation to the late drug kingpin Pablo Escobar, yet one theory surrounding the murder is a revenge hit by drug barons who bet and lost heavily on Colombia's defeat. Andrew Warren, 10 News.
At least 18 people died in the United States when a jet crashed during a fierce thunderstorm. Authorities say the DC-9 slammed into trees while making its second attempt to land at Charlotte International Airport in North Carolina.
50 passengers and 5 crew members were on board US Air Flight 1016 when its landing went horribly wrong.
And we heard the sound, we heard the noise, and it was during the time of the storm. We had this sudden thunderstorm. And I looked at my friend here and I said, well, if that was thunder, and I don't think it was thunder, and then the lights flickered and we're going on and off, and then that's when we came outside and we're told that a plane had crashed.
The domestic flight from South Carolina hit power and telephone poles before tearing through bushland and bursting into flames. Eyewitnesses say the plane then broke into 3, one piece landing on a house. It's not known if anyone was inside.
I saw the nose of the plane was pointed toward me, and you could tell that the plane, the side had been kind of torn off. I saw people just running around, frantic. It was confusion. They were in shock.
33 passengers and 2 crew members have been taken to hospital. Police helicopters with infrared heat-seeking equipment searched a nearby forest for those still missing. And investigators have begun combing through the wreckage to try to determine the cause of the disaster. Belinda Cole, 10 News.
Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians continue to fete PLO chairman Yasser Arafat after his return to Gaza. But at the same time, militant Israelis are now doing all they can to disrupt the peace with the Arabs, claiming Arafat wants to take over their holy city, Jerusalem.
It was like a pilgrimage. Today, Yasser Arafat drove into the heart of one of the most wretched refugee camps in the Gaza Strip to pay homage to what he called the children of the stones, the children who began the uprising, the Intifada against Israel's army 7 years ago. The crowd answered with a slogan of the uprising, "With our blood and our lives, we will liberate Palestine." This is where the Palestinian uprising began, and Yasser Arafat took the first opportunity to come here to the heart of Jabalia refugee camp to thank the people. Without the uprising they began, he wouldn't be here today. But Arafat called for reconciliation with Israel and called for support for the peace process. It will be worth it, he said. At the end of the long, hard road he vowed would be a Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital. What they're saying, screaming in Jerusalem tonight, is that Arafat is a mass murderer, and if he comes to Jerusalem, they'll kill him. And they yelled, Israel's prime minister is little better. He's giving away the land they say God gave the Jews. The biggest ever demonstration against the peace process. Israel Radio estimated 100,000 people. Right-wingers call on Israelis to block Jerusalem, cause traffic chaos, and stay overnight to surround the Prime Minister's office tomorrow morning when the Cabinet meets.
An IRA attack on an army base in southern Belfast has misfired. The mortars that hit the base caused little damage, but one that went astray caused havoc among guests at the wedding of a disabled couple.
The groom's party poses for the wedding day photo. Then the IRA launched its mortars. Another wedding was going on inside the church. There and outside too, there was chaos. One man arriving for the second wedding was blown out of his wheelchair by the force of one of the blasts. The van the mortars were fired from appeared to explode too and burned fiercely in the church's car park. The driver of a bus for one of the wedding parties was the most seriously injured. 2 doctors among the guests treated him where he lay.
I was just helping the driver. I was helping to stop the blood flow. It's not me that's injured, I'm afraid. That's the driver's wound, but he's gone to hospital now.
The target of the attack was a Royal Irish Regiment base. Some of the devices found their target, and while there was damage, no soldiers were injured. The parish priest told me that if the first wedding had ended, there would have been carnage in the car park. The second couple, both disabled, at least had their happy ending. They were married a short time later in another church nearby.
Ahead in 10 News, an historic move by Australian churches as they form a new unified body. And a rare and possibly final treat for steam lovers. A ceremonial salute today to the Australian servicemen who lost their lives in a daring assault on Singapore Harbour during the Second World War. None of the 23 commandos in Operation Rimau returned from their mission to attack Japanese shipping.
A small group of Aussie commandos gathered to remember their heroic wartime mates. Almost half a century ago, 23 young soldiers volunteered for Operation Rimau, a daring mission to blow up shipping in Singapore Harbour. Led by Lieutenant Colonel Ivan Lyon, the men left their submarine, overpowered the crew of a junk and prepared to infiltrate Singapore's harbour. But for unknown reasons, the mission was aborted, leaving our commandos stranded in enemy territory.
They virtually scattered. The Japanese finally tracked them all down, and they were incarcerated in the prisons and 9 beheaded.
No one came home?
No one came home.
Today we commemorate their courage and sacrifice. Samantha Liu, 10 News.
A new union of Australia's leading churches has been cemented in Canberra this evening. Christian denominations unified to form a new National Council of Churches in Australia. And in an historic step, the Catholic Church is a full member of the new group.
The Carillion's bells celebrate the significant union of Australia's Christian churches. It's a courageous move. The body brings together 13 major Christian congresses, including the Anglican Church, 7 Orthodox churches, 4 major Protestant churches, and now the Catholic Church.
And this makes the National Council of Churches in Australia one of the most widely representative national councils of churches in the world.
Formation of the new council took 6 years and replaces the Australian Council of Churches, but it's much more than a name change. The Catholic Church has joined other Christians under the same umbrella for the first time since a body of Christian churches was formed in Australia. Council members say this represents a significant shift in inter-church relations.
I'd say it involves a move from cooperation to commitment. We're committing ourselves to the other churches and saying, yes, we are partners, we stand together.
Visions today from the Anglican Church for Canberra to become the centre for Australian Christian spirituality, with the Lakeshore at Barton the location for a National Churches Centre.
A large central building which will be a focus for art and music and drama and culture and expression of Aboriginal spirituality. They'll probably have chapels in it.
The land is owned by the Anglican Church and lies on the edge of the parliamentary triangle. Katrina Wallace, 10 News.
For steam buffs and those who just like to remember some of the good things from the past, a rare treat in Victoria. 3 mighty R-class steam locomotives provided the thrill, and around 5,500 horsepower. The huge engines pulled a few very lucky enthusiasts from Melbourne to Bendigo in central Victoria and back on what may well be one of the last such jaunts. Steam fanatics were out in force to watch the juggernaut roll by, belching smoke and steam. Spectacles like this will probably fade into history as Australia's railway widths are standardised and made unsuitable for these old giants. Still to come in TED News, all the weather details, a novel use for bark, and all the sport with Matthew White.
Coming up, Collingwood beats Sydney, a record loss to St George, a historic win to the ACT, World Cup soccer, and Martina's graceful Wimbledon exit.
I loved Wimbledon from the first time I knew about it. I feel this place in my bones.
To the weather now, and it's only the temperatures in many capitals reminding us it's winter. Brisbane and Perth came in with showers today, the rest fine, if a little cloudy at times. The satellite photo shows the cloud concentrated mainly around the southeastern tip, with patchy cover over the east and southwest. And the synoptic chart shows why, with an extensive high still lingering over the continent, holding lows and their associated cold fronts down south. So tomorrow we can expect fine weather in most major cities, with just Brisbane and Hobart suffering a few showers. Further ahead, Tuesday looks like continuing the pattern, with Brisbane clearing, showers remaining in Hobart and returning to Perth. And on Wednesday, when it should be fine if chilly just about everywhere but Perth, where a few showers should persist. Well, Queensland's showery weather didn't prevent the world's biggest bark painting being unveiled on the Sunshine Coast. It's not just the size of the work that's impressive. The 13-metre long and 3-metre high work is made up of 1.25 million pieces of bark. It took 84 members of the Australian Art in Bark Association 3 weeks to complete. The striking work consists of bark mainly from melaleuca trees. Well, that's all in 10 News for the moment, but don't forget our next national bulletin at 11:30 in the morning with David Johnston. For now, stand by for Sports Tonight with Matthew White. I'm Sandra Sully. Good night.